Alrighty, so today we're gonna make Niku-Jyaga. So first things we need to do is, if you're going to use the Shirataki, it's a yam noodle. If you're gonna use these, you have to pre-boil it. So open up your container, and then it's one super huge honk and long noodle. So we're gonna just use scissors and maybe just cut this into quarters, one. And again, everything I'm going to do for you guys is just going to be very eyeball kind of like recipes, so just very zakuri, casual kind. Okay, so we cut that, rinse it a little bit, and then I'm going to toss it in boiling water. And it just needs to boil for like a minute or so. What I've already done is I measured out my the flavorings. So I have 3 tablespoons of sugar, 3 tablespoons of mirin, and 3 tablespoons of sake. So I have that all pre-measured, ready to go. Cooking is, like if you're a beginner, like measure everything out before so that you're not stressed or overwhelmed in the kitchen. Gonna mix this up just a little bit. And then I show you, that's gonna be ready to go. If you'd want to take the easy route, you can buy nimben tsuyu. This is it's shoyu, mirin, sake, and a little bit of dashi. So if you want to cheat, that's always a good one. For my potatoes, I chose I'm using 5 potatoes today. And when you pick out your potatoes, make sure that you pick the round potatoes. They have brown round ones and then red round ones. Either or, doesn't matter to me. They taste the same. But you want to avoid the long, the big honking ones that are long. Those ones are for baking. This is for cooking. It's going to give you a moister texture, a softer texture. The long ones are going to be baking potatoes, like I said. So if you were to use it for this one, they're going to crumble, fall apart, and it's a little bit, the texture's a little bit more grainier. So for a lot of the Japanese food, you'll be using the round potatoes. Mashed potatoes are better for this one, so the russet potatoes, I reckon, is what you call them in America. I got my onions. They're all sliced. I'm using 1 whole onion, and I haven't my microwave. I have my beef here. Today I'm going to use about a ½ pound, so that's about 50 grams of meat, I reckon. Anyhow, yeah, that much beef. All right, so this is coming to a boil, so we're going to come over here and strain it. Okay. So, it's a 1-pan dish, so it's super easy. Okay, so now what we're gonna do is we are going to put some oil in the pan. And looks like I'm a little shy on my oil. Okay. I have to bring out my industrial size oil. We want to make sure that it's hot. Okay, once that's heated, in my household we usually use scissors. Make sure that pan is super duper hot. And I'm just gonna cut this. It's like a big honkin', it's thinly sliced. Kind of like for sukiyaki, but I'm just gonna cut this, into sliced, so no need to go, cut it much more. But what we want to do is we want to get color on the beef. So we're going to let it sit because we want that color. We want it to brown. I'm going to go to the fridge and get out my stock. So today, not going to stir too much because like I said, we want color. Ooh, that's a nice color. There we go. We got color on there. Okay. You can get the thinly sliced sukiyaki type of beef at your Japanese markets. Sometimes they have it at the Korean market. And let's see, what did they call it? Okay, so it says beef chuck for sukiyaki. So, buy sukiyaki beef. It doesn't have to be the primo quality, but you don't want it too fat. Some people, depending on what part of Japan you're from, they do use pork instead of beef. So if you prefer pork, then go ahead. My beef has got nice color, so I'm going to turn it over. And then again, just let it sit because I want color. All right, so I went to the fridge and I pulled out stock. Usually I have Japanese stock that I have, it's like, made with kombu, kelp, and then katsubushi, which is bonito flakes. I didn't have it in my fridge today, but I did have beef stock that I made a couple days ago. This was made with beef bones, onions, and carrots, so I think this will work. It'll have kind of like a Western twist on it because it doesn't have the bonito flakes and it doesn't have the kelp, but it's better than adding water. So I'm going to add my stock to it, my Western stock to it, but if you do have Japanese stock, odashi, that one's best. So, okay, and now I'm kind of like separating the beef to make sure that all of the beef gets a nice, it gets sauteed, it gets really well cooked. Okay, and note I am using the high heat, it's 10, so I'm using 10. All right. You'll notice that this has fat on top. Don't really want that. I want a leaner dashi, so I'm just gonna pull back the fat and then get all the yumminess at the bottom. So if you do make your own stock, you put it in the fridge one night, and then the oils will separate from your soup. Okay, cool. So the amount of oil that I put in here, it was about 1.5 tablespoons of vegetable oil. Again, I'm just separating it because there were clumps. So just making sure that all of it gets cooked. If it is raw, it'll have a gamey or kind of like a meaty kind of flavor to it that I rather avoid. So we're gonna cook it until it's got a nice color. Okay. All right, so I like the color that's on the beef. So what I'm going to do now is I use quite a bit of oil intentionally because I want to cook my potatoes in that beefy kind of oil. That's going to allow the potatoes to absorb a lot of the flavor. So we're going to put this in. In Japan they say that vegetables love oil, so it goes really, really well. So get my little handy dandy spatula out, and we're just going to kind of let the potatoes go to the bottom and the beef can come to the top. Shake the pan a little bit so the potatoes will get coated with the yummy essence of the beef flavor and coat it with a little bit of that oil from the meat. Okay? Let it sit there for a little bit. Usually I don't do all this prep. Usually I just kind of prep as I go along. So I have all of this time and I'm like, okay, now what do? I have so much time on my hands. So this kind of cooking is not what I'm used to, but anyhow, here we go. So we're gonna flip a little bit. We want a little bit of color on the potato. It doesn't need to be sauteed or anything per se, but just a little bit of color. And then you can see that like the potato it's getting translucent on the edge. I don't know if you can see it that well. There we go. But here, so that's like it's starting to cook. So that's kind of like where you want all of the potatoes. You want it to have like pre-cook it, you know, par cook it. So shake and stir. And then we'll do this for maybe about total of 3 to 4 minutes. So I'm gonna turn off the camera and then come back with you. Okie dokes, we're back again. All right, so I like how everything's looking. I'm going to add the sake and the mirin sugar mixture. And what we need to do is we're adding this first because we want to burn off all the alcohol. So here it goes. Leave that there. Swish it around a little bit. And then burn off the alcohol. Okay. Okay, I want to say maybe 30 seconds. 30 seconds more, I should say. And again, if you were going to, you know, cheat, then you could use, I would use maybe like a 1/4 cup of the tsuyu and maybe 2.5 cups of water. And then taste midway. And if it's, you know, too light, you know, add a little bit more. You can't ever take the flavor out. So if you make it too strong or, you know, too salty, you're doomed. So add as you go along if that works better for you. Okay, I like that. I'm going to add 1.5 cups of broth. So here goes my broth. And again, trying to avoid the oil part. Okay. Maybe just a tad more. Cool. Okay. And pointo. Okay, so the shirataki, these noodles, have a tendency of making your beef tough. So you need to make a barrier so your beef doesn't become tough. And what I'm going to use is onions. So that's why I cut my onions thin over here. Gonna get all the yumminess off of that spoon. And then we're gonna go for 3 tablespoons, and then I'll measure it because you're watching. 1, 2, 3, and again, this is where you're going to season it now, and then halfway come back and re-season according to how, you know, strong you want it. Okay. And then the other thing with Japanese cooking is interesting. They have sashisu seso, but anyhow, you add your sugar first and your sake. So there's an order that you add your ingredients. So because the sugar is going to absorb in your food first. If you were to add shoyu first, soy sauce, then it's going to absorb the saltiness, and then for it to absorb the sugar, there's a chemical reaction, so it's harder for the sugar to be absorbed once the salt and the shoyu has been added. So if you're going to use sugar, add it in the beginning. Okay, so basic rule of thumb. All right, so I have my layer of onions down. I have, oops, got a couple of, got some more over here. And then here comes my shirataki, and that's just gonna go on top like that. And we are going to cover it with a piece of oil. This is called our otoshibuta. Don't put a regular top on it. It doesn't work well. You need to use otoshibuta. And in Japan, in America, we don't have, so I just use foil, just kind of crinkle it up, because the air, or not the air, the liquids will evaporate. They're going to hit the aluminum, and then they're going to go back down. So we want this like rotation of flavors going up and down, And with a regular top, according to the people who know what they're talking about, I'm an amateur, but they say that a regular top doesn't work, so use your otoshibuta. For this case, we're going to use a piece of foil, like I said, and then just kind of let it sit. Okay, now we're going to cook it for about 15 minutes, and I'm going to lower my heat. It was on high. I'm going to lower it down to about a medium low for, so that's like a 3 or 4. Cook it for 15-20 minutes. Taste it, and then add shoyu, and then I'll meet you back here in about 15 minutes. Okay, see ya. Hey, okay, so we're back. I actually ended up cooking it for 30 minutes, 35 minutes. I like the color on it. Tasted it, and it was a little bit too sweet for us, so I'm gonna add about 3 more tablespoons of soy sauce. 2.5, 3 maybe. Yeah, I think 2.5. Okay. And then swirl that around. And now I'm gonna put the fire on high and kind of boil it down, stew it down. So the otoshibuta is gonna come off. And then we're just gonna cook this down. I want to say for another 7 minutes. There you go. I like the sound. Yeah, for about another 7 minutes, and then it should be good to go. A little bit of sauce at the bottom would be nice, and then you can just let it sit, and then those flavors will absorb into the potatoes a little bit more. So, like I said, 7 minutes on high. Take it off the fire, and then just let it sit. Unless you're starving and you just want to dive in. But the flavors will absorb if you just, put it off to the side, and then you can eat as leftovers or whatever. But there you go, Niku-Jyaga. All right, enjoy. Bye.